Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
This episode is sponsored by Lifeway Kefir. I recently had a friend tell me that she needed to add more protein into her diet, but that she mostly avoids dairy because of the lactose. She had heard about Lifeway Kefir and decided to try it. The verdict? Pardon the pun, but she loved it. Lifeway Kefir is responsible for those delicious little cultured dairy drinks that you've probably seen in your local grocery store. They're loaded with protein, contain probiotics, and they're 99% lactose-free. And there are a ton of choices when it comes to their kefir. Low-fat, organic whole milk, non-fat, traditional, protein. Their product line continues to expand, making kefir fit in with different nutritional needs. For a coupon, just go to lifewaykefir.com/courtjunkie. That's Lifeway, KEFIR.com/courtjunkie. Hey everyone, this is Jillian, and you are listening to episode 26 of the Court Junkie podcast. Today's episode is about a teacher who crossed the line with her students and the consequences that followed. But first, I want to thank all of you for your support. Thank you for listening, subscribing, sharing with your friends, leaving me reviews, and donating. Your support is greatly appreciated. As a reminder, you can discuss this case, along with any others, in our discussion group at courtjunkie.com/Facebook. You can also find me on Twitter at courtjunkiepod, on Instagram at courtjunkie, or you can email me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. Quite a few of you have emailed me with some case suggestions, which I greatly appreciate. If you have any cases that you would like for me to cover, please let me know and I'll check them out. Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you a couple disclaimers for this episode. The first one is that there are some graphic details about the sexual battery charges that I'm not going to get into necessarily, but they'll be implied. So if you have kids in the room, you may want to pause this here and listen later. And secondly, for a variety of reasons, including legal ones, I'm using initials for the victims in this case. And now, on to the show. On December 1st, 2010, 3 high school seniors, EK, BC, and SS, were just leaving 32-year-old Stacy Schuler's home in Springboro, Ohio. Stacy tugged at EK's shirt, almost like she didn't want them to leave. But it was about 10:30 p.m. on a school night, and their parents kept calling, wanting to know where they were. The trio walked down the driveway and got into their car. BC was completely in awe at what had just happened. Each one of them had just had sex with Stacy, one of the teachers from their high school. Stacy was a 32-year-old health and physical education teacher at Mason High School in Mason, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati. She was recently divorced and kept busy with multiple jobs. In addition to her teaching role at Mason, she was also the physical trainer for their athletic department and an athletic trainer at a nearby school, as well as at the local YMCA. She was busy, but seemed to like it that way. She had been working at Mason High School since 2000, after she graduated college, and she was known as one of the popular teachers. One of those teachers that constantly had kids in her classroom, even if she wasn't teaching. They confided in her, and considered her a cool teacher. But all of that would come to a halt in January 2011. The second week of January 2011, a little over a month after the boys had last left Stacy's house, an anonymous tip was reported to the Mason High School administration. A tip that one of their teachers was having inappropriate text messages with one of her students. On January 18th, Stacy was placed on paid administrative leave. And in February, things turned criminal. She was indicted on 16 counts of sexual battery and 3 counts of providing alcohol to minors. According to the indictment, there were 5 alleged victims, all seniors at Mason High School. Stacy turned herself into the police and was held at the Warren County Jail, her bond set at $50,000. Law enforcement, along with the school principal, held a press conference.
The purpose of this news conference today is to jointly announce the indictment of the teacher at Mason High School. The offenses took place on 5 separate occasions in the months of August through December of 2010, and the victims in the case are 5 male Mason High School students. The allegations of sexual battery, which are charged in the indictment, are based on the status of the defendant being a teacher, as well as a person in authority over the victims, who are students at Mason High School.
The week of January 10th, we received an anonymous tip indicating that one of our teachers was inappropriately involved with a student. We took that information very seriously and immediately began an investigation and involved our school resource officer, Carly Smith. After about a week, we believed we had learned the teacher's identity. What we discovered prompted us to follow Mason City Schools' policies and procedures for removing the teacher from the classroom. We continue to fully cooperate with the police and the prosecutor. As high school principal, I am committed to the safety and well-being of our students and will not tolerate behavior that does not conform to that goal. Our staff is prepared to help our students during this situation and know how important it is to continue to build trust with our students and families. We all play a role in making sure our schools are safe. I've asked parents to remind their children how critical it is to talk to an adult in our school if they see or hear something that makes them uncomfortable or seems out of line. I've encouraged them to ask that their children avoid gossip and rumors. We know that our families help. We can continue to keep our schools safe and an effective place to learn. Thank you.
The Mason community was in shock over the allegations. One of their beloved high school teachers had been sleeping with 5 students, and if that wasn't enough, there was another scandal involving Stacy and the assistant principal, who was also placed on administrative leave. He had reportedly sent inappropriate text messages to Stacy, text messages that the students had told the high school administration that they had seen on Stacy's phone. Stacy posted bail, but was under strict monitoring until her trial. She was fitted with an electronic monitoring device and ordered to stay away from anyone under the age of 18, as well as could not have any contact with her alleged victims, couldn't have any alcohol or drugs, and was designated an 8 p.m. curfew. About a week after her release, after much outrage from the community, Stacy resigned from her job at Mason High School. Stacy denied the allegations at first, denying that she had sexual relations with her students and denying that she had given them alcohol. But about a month before her trial was set to begin, in July 2011, Stacy changed her plea from not guilty to not guilty by reason of insanity. Despite her earlier denials, her attorney released a statement, now apparently blaming her alleged victims, the high school students, that read, "It has come to light that during the period of the alleged misconduct, Stacy had become impaired and thereby unable to prevent the young men from taking advantage of her. In the fall of 2010, the young men involved in this case traveled across the county in order to take advantage of her impairment. The judge in the case, Judge Robert Peeler, ordered that Stacy undergo a mental evaluation to determine if she was competent enough to stand trial. The scheduled trial would have to be delayed. Stacy was found competent, and the proceedings began on October 24, 2011. She had opted for a bench trial, meaning that there would be no jury. Her case would instead be heard and decided by Judge Robert Peeler. The burden was not only on the prosecution to prove that Stacy did in fact have sex with her students, but the defense now had a burden too. Under Ohio law, a person is considered insane if they're suffering from a mental defect and don't know right from wrong at the time of the incident. So the defense would have to prove that Stacy didn't know that her actions were wrong. And there's one other thing I want to point out here. It might be pretty shocking to most of us that a 32-year-old would be sleeping with 17-year-olds. But in Ohio, that's not the part that's illegal. The age of consent in Ohio is actually 16, but here's where the illegality comes in. In Ohio, it's illegal for a teacher or authority figure to have sex with their students. It's a third-degree felony. So essentially, if Stacy wasn't a teacher and this had happened, it would be legal. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the trial. The prosecutor in the case was Assistant Warren Prosecutor Teresa Hyatt, and Stacy was being represented by a father-son team with their own practice, Charlie Ritkers Sr. and Charlie Ritkers Jr. She was facing 1 to 5 years for each felony account if convicted. In her opening statements, Prosecutor Hyatt said that the focus of this case is whether or not Stacy had sexual contact with students from Mason High School. She said the court will find that Stacy did have sexual contact with several students on 5 different occasions, 2 in August, 2 in September, and 1 in December 2010. All of the incidents took place at Stacy's home, and Hyatt pointed out that each time, the defendant welcomed them at the door, let them inside, and at some point was drinking. But she said that at no point was Stacy ever slurring her words or passing out and being taken advantage of. She said the students thought they were going to her house for Vicodin or alcohol, not for sex. They would bring the marijuana, and Stacy would provide the alcohol. She said all 5 victims were seniors at Mason High School. She said, they all describe how Stacy had beer and alcohol, and they were all able to describe the inside of Stacy's house. In their opening statements, Charlie Ritkers Sr. called Stacy an exceptional teacher who had a positive influence on the school. He said she has a strong Christian background, never had sex before marriage, and wore baggy clothes in order to not draw attention to herself. He said she never smoked marijuana, and in fact, she would counsel students against it. Stacy held many jobs at the same time, all jobs that involved helping people. He said she always wanted to do more, like add classes for autistic kids, and she did these things in order to improve people's lives. Ritkers said the state wants to paint Stacy as a sex maniac with an insatiable appetite for sex and drugs, and that she wanted to be passed around to her students. But, he said, Stacy was impaired by a number of medical and psychological issues that will be supported by witnesses who will testify in this case. He said Stacy had mania, PTSD, polycystic disease, and bipolar disorder. The 5 incidents occurred at Stacy's home, he told the court, the refuge she created from her hectic schedule. He said that during this entire period of time, she would average about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. He said she consumed alcohol to reduce the stress of her schedule. Her downtime was precious to her, downtime that occurred between 10:30 and 11:30 on Friday nights, after she treated injured players at the football games. He said before the alleged acts occurred, Stacy was prescribed Zoloft for depression and also to help with irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. He said that when she was alone and drank, she wasn't able to see the warning signs of that combination, nor was she aware of some of the illnesses she had. He said she had manic episodes that were magnified by the alcohol, and that she didn't know what she was doing when she got into these psychotic states. She didn't know right from wrong. He said Stacy has no memory of these events. He told the court, after hearing all the evidence, if the state shows that these events did occur, Stacy at those times was insane. The first witness was R.S. R.S. testified that he was 17 years old in August 2010. He attended Mason High School and graduated with a 3.9 grade point average. At the time of the trial, he said he was currently attending college. R.S. said he originally met Stacy when he was about 9 or 10 years old through his older brother and sister, who were both athletes at Mason High School. Stacy was their trainer. When R.S. got to high school, he played football and lacrosse. Stacy was his trainer for football for all 4 years. When he was in his junior year, he took Stacy's mind and body wellness class, along with the sports medicine class. Hyatt asked him what the nature of his interaction with Stacy had been like at that time. He said she was the trainer, so whenever he was injured or in therapy, he would see her. He said he confided in Stacy that he was suffering from depression, and one day, while in her classroom, he opened up to her about it. He said she seemed nice to her students, and he felt comfortable talking to her. He said they would have frequent discussions about his depression, but also about drug-related things and girl-related things. He said he told her that he was smoking marijuana and said that she was against it. He told the court that she had confided in him too, that they would both talk about issues in each of their lives. Hyatt asked him what Stacy was like with other students, and he said that he would describe her as flirtatious. Hyatt asked if he was aware of her age at the time, and he said yes, that she was 32. He said that he had suffered an ankle injury, and so he was seeing Stacy more going into senior year. A week prior to the incident, in August 2010, he said they were at a scrimmage game when he decided to talk to Stacy about taking Vicodin so that he could possibly play. He said his injury was holding him back from playing. He said that because of Stacy's medical background, he figured that she would be a good person to talk to about it. Hyatt asked what Stacy's reaction was to his Vicodin idea. He said she went back and forth with it, but that he wasn't sure if she was going to give it to him or not. He said he and his friend E.K. decided after the scrimmage game that they wanted to go to Stacy's house and hang out and smoke marijuana there. He said they asked her if they could come over, and that Stacy was flirtatious and gave them hints about her home address. Hints like EK's jersey number and what are old roads made out of, meaning cobblestone, the name of her street. They Googled her after her hints to make sure that they had the right address. He said they told her they were going to come over, and she never told them no. He told Hyatt, "We believed that she wanted us to come over." After RS and EK had each gone home to shower, RS then picked up EK at his house. It was about 11 or midnight. He said he texted Stacy and told her that they were serious about coming over, and that she challenged them, saying that they don't have the balls to come over. He said he didn't ever recall her saying, "No, you can't come over." They used their GPS to find her house, located in Springboro, and then he parked in the driveway. As they were walking up to the front door, he said they could see her through the window. She was doing dishes. When she opened the front door, he said she seemed kind of playful, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here." She moved to the side so they could come in. She was wearing a sweatshirt and pants. RS described what the inside of the home looked like, describing an island in the kitchen where they sat. He said he was high and that Stacy gave them alcohol. She didn't appear to be drunk, but she smoked marijuana with them, saying that it was her first time doing it. He said they went into the living room and Stacy gave them back massages on the floor, first EK and then him. He said Stacy told him that he could do anything he wanted to her. He said they were surprised, that they couldn't believe they were going to have sex with her. They hadn't anticipated that when they came over. He said Stacy suddenly got upset. They went into the kitchen, and Stacy went to the bedroom and turned off the lights. She told them to forget it, but then told them to come into the bedroom. RS said she was lying in bed, wearing only a bra and pants. He said the three of them took their clothes off, and then they all decided to go outside to smoke a cigarette. Hyatt clarified, "You were all naked at this point?" And RS said yes. He said they then went back inside, and both he and EK had sex with her, 2 times each. He said Stacy was participating and never said no or tried to stop. He heard Stacy's alarm go off, and she got ready to go to work. She told them that they could stay and sleep, and so RS and EK slept in the family room. Hyatt asked him if Stacy appeared to be angry when she left for work, and he said no. The next day at school, RS said that Stacy was nice to him and smiled at him. They talked about his injury, and then RS said she told him that she was worried. She said, "You guys have all the power," meaning that her job, her life, was in their hands. But he said she never told him that he couldn't come over after that. And so a week later, on August 27th, 2010, there was a football game at Mason High School. And afterwards, RS said he and Stacy talked about them coming over again, like making it a tradition after every game. The conversation occurred in the training room and then over text messages. He said Stacy was fine with the idea, and he and EK texted her when they were on their way over. He said when they got to her door, she was smiling and appeared to be happy to see them. When asked by Hyatt if it looked like she had been drinking, he said no. Once again, Stacy brought out alcohol for them, beer and peach wine. RS said Stacy took her car out of the garage so that EK could pull in and they could smoke marijuana. He said Stacy was drinking but didn't appear drunk. While in the garage, RS said Stacy came over to him and started touching his hair and his face. He said it seemed like she wanted to do it right there in the garage, but that he didn't want to because the garage door was partly open. They went into the kitchen, and RS asked for a glass of water. Stacy gave it to him and then asked for a reward. They ended up making out in the kitchen, and then he said the 3 of them went into the bedroom, and again, both of them had sex with her. He said he and EK fell asleep on the couch until Stacy's alarm clock woke them up the next morning. He said at first no one heard it, and so he was late for football practice. He saw Stacy again the next morning in the training room. Her demeanor was the same as always, he said, nice and flirty. During one conversation, he said Stacy pulled him aside to make sure that he was okay. She said she didn't want him to be messed up psychologically 40 years from now. Hyatt asked if she treated him any differently in class, and he said no. He said he never went back to her house after that night. On cross-examination, RS told Stacy's attorney, Charlie Ritkers Sr., that he could tell Stacy was flirting with him because of the way she looked at him with her eyes, among other things. When asked if she treated him differently than any of the other athletes, he said he may have gotten some preferential treatment. He agreed that she flirted with everyone, but with him more often. Then Ritkers asked him a flurry of questions. She was nice, wasn't she? RS said correct. She wanted to help everyone? Correct. She had a difficult time saying no, didn't she? Correct. She had a difficult time putting her foot down. Correct. Ritkers said, when you and EK told her that this would be a weekly event, it was after she told you that you all had the power, right? RS said yes. Ritkers asked why they would have to Google her if they were invited to her home, why he didn't just text her. RS said they looked her up before the texting began, and that he guessed that it would have just been easier to text her instead of Googling her. Ritkers then brought out a transcript of the interview RS gave to police. In the interview, RS told them that he had been working on Stacy for a long time. Also in the interview, when the detective asked him why he only went over to her house twice, he said, because I stopped pursuing her. He said he started seeing another girl. RS said the first interaction he had with her that was outside the norm was during junior year when he used to talk to her about his problems. Rittgers then asked RS if he was disrespectful to Stacy, and he said, "I didn't go out of my way to be nice to her." He admitted that he cussed at her, but denied that he ever blackmailed her for an A, a question Rittgers asked him. Rittgers said, "You didn't tell her, I'll tell everyone about what happened unless you give me an A?" RS said no. Rittgers pointed out that there were 3 other people who said that he did, including EK. RS responded that he wasn't always friends with all of them, including EK. When asked why he doesn't get along with EK now, he said he doesn't know. Was he angry with you because you were disrespecting Stacy? RS again said he didn't know. Rittgers asked him if he bragged about sleeping with his teacher, and RS admitted that he had told others. The fact that all 3 of you were in bed having sexual relations, is that weird? Rittgers asked him. RS said it wasn't normal for him, but that it's not something that never happens. Rittgers then brought up how the 3 of them were naked in the kitchen, with no blinds on the windows, and then naked outside, while the outside of the home wasn't enclosed. The next witness to take the stand was EK, RS's former friend who went to Stacy's house with him the first 2 times. EK told the court that he was 17 years old at the time of the incidents and that he graduated from Mason High School in 2011. He now goes to college. EK said he had 2 classes with Stacy his senior year and that she was also his trainer for football. He said she was more like a friend than a teacher. They talked a lot, before and after class, and he hung out with her during the school day. Unlike RS, he said he didn't go to her with his personal issues. He recalled the first time he went over to Stacy's house with RS. He too testified that Stacy gave them hints about her address and that she knew they were coming over. He said he thought they were going to get Vicodin from her. According to EK, Stacy was inviting when they got there. He said she was drinking, but that she wasn't slurring her words or swaying or stumbling. They chit-chatted for a bit, and she gave them a tour of the house. They drank and then smoked marijuana. After Stacy gave them back massages, he went to the bathroom, and when he came out, he said RS was laughing and told him that Stacy had told him that he could do whatever he wanted to her. He said he was surprised, that he didn't expect that to happen. Stacy then went into the bedroom and turned the lights off. She was mad at them for not going in there at first. She said, "If you guys don't come in here, then why don't you just go home?" He then reiterated the details that RS had testified to, that they both had sex with her, twice. He said afterwards, he and RS were in the living room, freaking out about the whole situation. They fell asleep and eventually left at about 2 or 3 the next day, while Stacy was at work. EK said he saw Stacy at football later that day. She wasn't acting any differently, and they all giggled about what had happened. The following week, EK and RS told Stacy while they were in the training room that they were coming over again, and that they were going to make it a weekly thing. He said there were other people in the room at the time, but that they weren't paying attention and didn't hear the conversation. EK said when they went over there later, for the second time, he drank peach wine and he and RS smoked marijuana while Stacy drank wine. He gave the same testimony about the night as RS did. EK said that again, Stacy didn't act any differently when he saw her later in the day. EK was asked if he ever went back to Stacy's house after those 2 nights with RS, and he said that he did. On September 3rd, 2010, after their football game, he talked to Stacy about coming over again. RS couldn't go, and so he brought his friend DM with him. He said he texted Stacy to ask if he could bring DM instead of RS, and that she was iffy about the whole situation. He said she was worried about her job, but he told her that DM was his best friend and that he wouldn't tell anyone. She ended up saying okay, they could come. When they got to Stacy's house, he said her demeanor was the same as always. She answered the door, smiling. He said Stacy was drinking again, and that he and DM drank peach wine and some vodka. He and DM then smoked marijuana in her garage, while Stacy drank. Stacy then gave them back massages in the living room. He said she then had the idea for all of them to shower together. He said both he and DM had sex with her that night. He said at no time did she say no, or did she say she didn't want to do it anymore. The next day, EK took DM home and went to football practice. He said he didn't notice anything different about Stacy's behavior towards him, although she asked him if she was the first person that RS had ever had sex with. About 2 weeks later, EK texted Stacy and asked if he could come over again, this time with DM and another friend, SS. He said her response was the same as when he had first asked about DM coming over, but that she eventually said okay. EK told the court that by this time, SS knew what had been happening with Stacy. When they arrived, Stacy again invited them in. He said that every time they came over, she would act surprised at first, but then invite them in. Again, Stacy was drinking, but he didn't believe that she was drunk. The boys smoked marijuana and got high. He said he wasn't sure if Stacy gave them back massages this time, but he thinks that she did. EK and SS took turns having sex with her, and then EK said he fell asleep on the couch. When he woke up, he saw Stacy walking around naked, but he said she was acting normal and gave him a hug when he left. EK said he went back to Stacy's house a 5th time in early December, after football season and during basketball season. After they attended a team dinner, EK texted Stacy and asked if he could bring his friend BC along with SS over to her house. He said he had never told BC about what had been happening before. Stacy was iffy again, but eventually again said yes. So EK, BC, and SS went over to Stacy's house. She invited them in and gave a tour of her house because BC had never been there before. Stacy was drinking on this night too, but not as much as usual. There was school the next day. After the tour, Stacy gave them all back massages, and all 3 of them had sex with her again. At about 10:30 p.m., they had to leave because their parents kept calling, wanting to know where they were at. He said as they were leaving, Stacy tugged at his shirt as though she didn't want him to leave. That was the last time he went over to Stacy's house. He said they continued talking, however, because they were friends. On cross-examination, Ritkers asked if students tried to take advantage of Stacy, if they took her kindness as weakness, and EK said yes. Regarding EK's interview with the detective, Ritkers pointed out that he said that sometimes it seemed like Stacy didn't care if she lost her job. Ritkers asked if it was unusual that although Stacy counseled her students against drugs, that she had smoked marijuana with them the first time he went over to her house. EK agreed that it was unusual. Ritkers continued to point out Stacy's unusual behavior. EK said at one point that Stacy came out of nowhere and tried to jump on him while he was sleeping on the couch. Another time, he described her as being outside with him, and she was barefoot with snow on the ground. Ritkers read another part of EK's interview with the detective, in which he said that Stacy would laugh here and there during sex, and that she would often walk around naked. He had also told the detective that Stacy's eyes were red, squinty, and bloodshot. He asked EK why in court he was saying that Stacy didn't appear drunk, but that he had implied that she was to investigators. EK said he didn't know. He admitted that he had no idea how long Stacy had been drinking for before they arrived each time. Regarding RS, the friend he had gone over to Stacy's with the first 2 times, he agreed that RS had been disrespectful to Stacy and that he had cussed her out in class as well as in the training room. He said RS also told other classmates about his sexual encounters with her, which made him upset because Stacy was his friend. On redirect, EK was asked if he ever threatened to tell anyone on Stacy, and he said no, and that she never specifically asked him not to tell anyone. The next witness was SS, the student who had gone over to Stacy's house the last 2 times. He too was 17 years old when the incidents occurred. He graduated in 2011 with a GPA of 3.8. SS said that Stacy was his teacher and that they had sexual relations. He called her a good teacher, saying that she taught him a lot about life in general. He said she was more of an influence on him as a person, as she was an educator, and that she led him through a dark time in his life. During his junior year, SS was depressed. His father had cancer, and Stacy helped guide him through that. He first heard rumors that RS and Stacy were sleeping together, and he didn't believe it at first. He had conversations with her about the rumors, and he said she told him that that never happened with RS, and she said she was nervous about the rumors. In mid-September, he said he went to Stacy's house with EK and DM. He said he was hanging out with EK and DM when they decided to go over to Stacy's house. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision. EK texted Stacy to let her know that they were coming. SS said that Stacy was happy and acting normally, smiling, walking around, and talking to them. He said she was normal. He said she was drinking wine and they were smoking marijuana. The boys took their shirts off and she gave them each a back massage on her living room floor. He said he had sex with her that night, and he told Ritkers that she was participating and never told him no. He recalled her eyes being red, but that was it. He said the next morning Stacy was walking around naked, but that she seemed happy. He said she had an unusual way of making things not awkward. In early December, he described going over to her house a second time, this time with EK and BC. He said he and Stacy had never discussed what had happened, but that she would give him winky faces. That second time, it was the same as the first. She gave them back massages, and they all took turns going into the bedroom and having sex with her. He said they all watched Finding Nemo afterwards, and then left around 10:30. He never went back to her house after that night, and he never talked to her about what had happened. They still talked, but he said it was their normal talk, that she helped him with his issues because he was lost. On cross-examination, SS said he was shocked about what had happened because she was his teacher and that you just don't see that happen. He said she was concerned that people were going to find out and that her life was going to go down the drain. When asked how much he thought she drank during the first night he went to her house, he said he thought she drank about 2 bottles of wine. Ritkers quoted SS from his interview with police, where he said, "It was weird, she was walking around naked all the time." And Ritkers asked, "So she was naked for more than just that following morning?" And SS said yes. In his interview, SS also told police that Stacy was very drunk. He told Ritkers she was drunk, but that she was acting normally and wasn't slurring her words. Ritkers then started asking him questions about RS, asking if RS had been trying to blackmail Stacy. SS said that that was a rumor he had heard, but that he believed it at the time. We'll get into more testimony from the trial right after this quick break. Last week, I got my very first Casper mattress. And I have to tell you, these last few nights, I've gotten some of the best sleep I've had in months. I'm kind of in love. The Casper is an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. The supportive memory foam creates an award-winning sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. Never have I had a mattress before that balances those two things as perfectly as Casper does. Another fantastic perk is that you can try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it like I do, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. So you literally have nothing to lose. Casper understands the importance of truly sleeping on a mattress before you commit, especially considering that you're going to spend a third of your life on it. With over 20,000 reviews and an average of 4.8 stars, it's quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress. There's free shipping and returns to the US and Canada, and you can get $50 toward any mattress purchased by visiting www.casper.com/court and using offer code COURT. That's casper.com/court. Terms and conditions apply. And now, back to the trial. The next witness was DM, EK's friend who went over to Stacy's house on those third and fourth nights. He said he too was 17 years old at the time, and that he graduated Mason High School with a 3.9 GPA. He told the court that he had a mind, body, and wellness class, along with a yoga class with Stacy during his senior year. He called her a very good teacher, but said that he never talked to her about any issues that he was having. He described his first time going to Stacy's house in early September. He said he wasn't aware of anything that had been going on with Stacy and the other boys until they were in the car on their way over to her house, and EK told him. He described his reaction as shocked and curious. He said EK made it seem like they were going over to her house to drink and smoke marijuana. He said she greeted them with a smile when they arrived and that she was drinking peach wine. He said she didn't appear drunk, wasn't stumbling, wasn't clumsy, didn't have bloodshot eyes, and wasn't slurring her words. He said Stacy gave him 3 beers, and he recalled how she gave them back rubs, and then they all showered together. They didn't get any sleep that night, and they left when Stacy's alarm went off. He said he never discussed what had happened with Stacy. He went over there again weeks later with EK and SS. He said EK had told SS what had happened and wanted to bring SS over because it was a safe place to drink and smoke marijuana. They went over to her house and Stacy expressed remorse about what had been happening and said that it was wrong. She said that she wasn't going to be drinking as much and that the first time it had happened, she drank a lot and wasn't eating much. She said it wouldn't happen again, and so they were under the impression that it wasn't going to happen. But then Stacy brought out scotch, and DM said her persona changed. When they had first arrived, she was more conservative, but after drinking, she was more flirtatious and seemed happier. They again drank, and DM said that EK and SS both had sex with her. He said he went into the living room because he was a bit grossed out about how they were all having sex with her and how easily it was happening. The next morning, they said their normal goodbyes. He said Stacy wasn't acting any differently and wasn't expressing any emotions. She didn't treat him any differently in class afterwards either. When asked if he had ever seen Stacy get angry, he said yes, that he saw her get angry at RS in class once, although he wasn't asked to elaborate. He said the only thing she ever expressed remorse about were the sex acts and not the alcohol or drugs. The next witness was Stacy's former student aide, someone we'll call KD. She said Stacy was her teacher, and then she became Stacy's student aide for 3 years. She called Stacy a friend and said that she confided in her about everything, every day. She told the court that she went to Stacy's house about 4 or 5 times, saying that they would usually go out and get lunch and then bring the lunch back to Stacy's house. She said that in the fall of 2010, Stacy confided in her that something had happened with RS and EK. Stacy told her that she had been really drunk and that she thought something happened with RS. She said she thought EK had only watched. The conversation happened in her classroom when KD was home for a visit. Stacy was really upset and told her that she was afraid she was going to lose her job. Asked why she thought that Stacy was referring to something sexual if she didn't outrightly say that, KD said she just inferred and that she didn't know what else she would have been worried about. Stacy never told her anything about the boys coming over to smoke marijuana or drink. Asked if she had any other conversations with Stacy about what happened, KD said that Stacy told her that if anyone found out what had happened, she already had her defense, that she would claim that she was insane. KD finished her testimony by saying that when she was first interviewed by detectives, she didn't want to help them, but that she has since changed her feelings about it. When asked why, over an objection by the defense, she replied, "Because I don't think she deserves to go free for what she did. She deserves consequences." On cross-examination, KD again reiterated that she didn't want to help detectives at first, and so she didn't tell them about Stacy's plan to plead insanity. She said Stacy was still her friend, and she wanted to protect her. She had also told them that she had never been drinking with Stacy, but that she actually had. She said that Stacy gave her alcohol one time at her house, and that she gave her alcohol again at her graduation party. KD said she spoke with EK and DM prior to her interview with detectives. "You're not upset that your friends took advantage of a woman?" Ritkers asked her. "I guess it upsets me," she replied. The next witness was another female named BD. BD is good friends with KD and was in Stacy's mind and body wellness class during her senior year. She said Stacy was like a friend to her. She called Stacy a laid-back teacher, saying that students always went to her with their problems. She and Stacy would occasionally text each other back and forth or communicate via Facebook and email. She brought up the rumors she was hearing to Stacy, and Stacy kept denying them. But BD said that one day she had a conversation with Stacy in her classroom after school. Stacy confessed, saying that she did have a sexual relationship with RS and that the rumors he had been spreading were true. Prosecutor Hyatt asked, "Did she actually say, 'I had sexual relations with RS?' And BD said yes. She recalled how Stacy had been crying and had said, "It's true what he's been telling everyone. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't practice my yoga." Stacy admitted to her that she knew it was wrong, that she couldn't believe what she had done. Stacy told her that the boys had showed up at her house one night and she let them in. She said she had been blacked out drunk and had been drinking all night. She said they drank beer she had in her fridge and that she didn't want to make them leave because they had been drinking. She claimed she didn't remember what happened because she was so drunk, but that she thought she had sex with RS. She told BD that she had rolled over and had seen him lying next to her. BD said she asked how she knew they had slept together, and Stacy told her that she thought she had taken his virginity, but she couldn't remember the actual act. BD said Stacy never mentioned anyone aside from RS. She told the court that she didn't know what to do, so she consoled Stacy, who was crying and saying that she'll never be able to teach again. She said Stacy told her that it would be easy to make RS look crazy because he always fought in class, that it would be easy to make him seem like he was an obsessed student. She said Stacy also told her that she would try to plead insanity, that she would say she had a bad marriage and a bad divorce, and that her husband abused her mentally. BD said that she was friends with 4 of the 5 boys, and that she had talked to them about what had happened with Stacy. On cross-examination, BD said that like KD, when she first talked to detectives, she was trying to defend Stacy while trying to tell the truth at the same time. She described feeling very manipulated by someone she had thought was her friend. She said, "That wasn't the case. She was not my friend. And when I opened up and accepted the truth of what happened, it became very clear that I don't need to defend and sugarcoat what this person did." BD became very emotional on the stand. Ritkers then asked her about RS. She agreed that he was a jerk and that everyone started to hate him. She said he was disrespectful to Stacy and that he had told BD that he could get an A in the class because he could go to the administration at any time. The next witness the state called was BC, EK's friend who went to the very last incident at Stacy's home in December. BC was the last of the 5 alleged victims. BC said that he was 17 years old at the time of the incident and that he played football and basketball. Stacy was his trainer too, and he said that she was a popular teacher who was easy to talk to. He noted that it was hard to look at her like a teacher. He said that he and EK were friends and that he went to Stacy's classroom a couple times for lunch with EK. In December 2010, after their team dinner, EK asked him if he wanted to go over to Stacy's house. He wouldn't tell him why. In the car on their way over, EK and SS told him what had been going on with Stacy. He said he thought, "I'll believe it when I see it." BC said Stacy was drinking, but he didn't think that she was drunk. He said that when they had sex, she was participating and never told him no or that she didn't want to. After they did it, he and his friends left. He said he saw her the next week because she was planning a dance choreography for a Christmas concert, and she wanted to show him a YouTube video of the dance. He said they didn't talk about what happened and that she was acting normally. So I want to stop here really quickly and go over the timeline, since we're now done with the victim's testimony. So to recap, there were 5 incidents in which Stacy allegedly had sex with her students, and they all occurred at her home. The first incident was on August 20th, 2010, with RS and EK. The second incident was about a week later, on August 27th, again with RS and EK. The third incident was in the beginning of September, with EK and his friend DM. The fourth incident was a couple weeks after that, in mid-September, with EK, DM, and SS. And the last incident was in the beginning of December, with EK, SS, and BC. Stacy was arrested in mid-January. The next witness was Melinda McCarty Stewart, the principal at Marion High School. She said Stacy was a teacher there for about 8 years until she resigned on February 8th after being released on bail. Prior to her resignation, she said Stacy was in good standing. Prosecutor Hyatt asked if the school has a policy regarding appropriate student-teacher relationships, and Melinda said yes, and that they go over it at the beginning of each school year. She said it's also in the teacher handbook. The policy does not allow students and teachers to text each other, let alone sleep with each other. After the incidents became public, Melinda said she didn't recall speaking to Stacy directly, but she did coordinate with her father regarding getting Stacy's personal belongings from the school. She said she worked with 4 of the victims afterwards on what she would call interventions. There was concern over the focus, disengagement, social behavior, and of them wanting to quit sports teams. She said she was directly involved in coaching them and encouraging them to continue with their school life. Detective Tony Holke, the lead detective in the case, took the stand next. She said the case first came about with an anonymous call to the Mason administration building. The caller had said that there were inappropriate text messages going on between Stacy and RS. Detective Holke said she responded to the school after Stacy was removed from the property. She later talked to the victims, who admitted to having sex with Stacy. She said they then searched Stacy's residence and collected bedding from the bedroom on the first floor, as well as the master bedroom. They then sent the bedding to the Ohio Valley Regional Crime Lab for testing. On cross-examination, Detective Holke said they didn't find any illegal drugs, nude photos, pornographic materials, love letters to the victims, birth control, sexy lingerie, or anything like that. When asked about sex toys, Holke said there was a closet full of games and sex toys. Ritkers asked if that could have been from a bachelorette party, and she admitted that she wasn't sure. The next witness for the state was Annette Davis, a forensic scientist at the Miami Valley Regional Crime Laboratory. She received items from the Mason Police Department to be tested for the presence of semen. She said she got positive results on 3 items: a mattress pad from the master bedroom, a comforter, and a mattress pad from the second bedroom. She received DNA samples from the victims to compare the stains. She was able to determine that 2 of the stains on the comforter matched the profile for BC. There were numerous stains on other items that were either mixtures or single-source stains, and Stacy's DNA was on those. And with that, the state rested their case. The defense's case consisted mostly of character witnesses, who all testified that Stacy was a great teacher and friend, and that she went out of her way to help others. One former student told the court that Stacy had helped him get through the loss of his mother and that during his senior year, he started an anti-suicide club with her. He said she also helped him come out with his sexual orientation and made him realize that he's an amazing person and that his life is worth living. He said he did have Stacy's phone number and that he would text her with problems he would have and that she would respond immediately. Another former student testified that Stacy was her favorite teacher and that they had kept in touch after she graduated. She said Stacy helped her get through a lot of issues, including issues with eating disorders. She said the male students all thought Stacy was hot and that some of the boys were obsessed with her. She said she never saw Stacy being flirtatious with any of the students, that she was the same way with the girls as she was with the boys. Yet another former student said his parents were going through a divorce and that he would talk to Stacy about that. He said he remembered being in class and RS taking Stacy's phone off of her desk, which made her really mad, but he had no idea why that happened. And another student got emotional on the stand, recalling how Stacy had helped her get through a compromising position, letting her know that it was going to be okay. She said Stacy had a rule about Facebook that she wouldn't friend a student on there until after they had graduated because it was inappropriate. Another student testified that Stacy helped him deal with depression as well as helped him get off of drugs. He too became emotional on the stand. A fellow teacher testified and said that she and Stacy were very close and taught in the same department. She called Stacy a phenomenal teacher and said that she was always upbeat, which may be why some students interpreted that as flirting. She said she loved Stacy, but that Stacy struggled with confrontation and was standing up for herself. She told the court that teenagers can be like wild dogs, and they can sense your weaknesses. Stacy's was putting her foot down and being a disciplinarian. She said Stacy's students would push her until they could get out of an assignment and would push her to go off topic in class, and that Stacy couldn't say no. Another fellow teacher testified that Stacy was one of the most respected teachers at Mason High School. She recalled how Stacy taught a yoga class that a lot of her special needs students would take. She said those kids would be so excited for the class and that they all loved Stacy. Stacy would teach that class during her lunchtime instead of eating. Aside from working with her, she called Stacy a friend too. She said one day she was having a really bad time, and the next day, Stacy gave her a green frog that sang, "I can see clearly now," with a note that read, "Sorry you had a bad day." She said she was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and that Stacy has always been there for her. She came to her house and cleaned out her kitchen of everything that was bad, took her shopping, gave her recipes, and even taught yoga at her home. Dr. Harry Plotnick testified next as an expert in the field of toxicology. He concluded that Stacy suffered from mania as a result of taking Zoloft in conjunction with alcohol. He said the mania was responsible for her sexual activity as well as her memory loss. Dr. Plotnick said that in February 2009, Stacy was prescribed Zoloft and had been taking it ever since. He said he read the transcripts of the interviews with the victims, looked at the side effects of Zoloft, and reviewed thousands of articles on the effects of antidepressants. He said that with Zoloft, it says to contact your health provider if you have difficulty sleeping, become angry or violent, act on dangerous impulses, or experience mania. On cross-examination, Prosecutor Hyatt pointed out that Stacy had been taking Zoloft since February of 2009, but this behavior wasn't exhibited until the fall of 2010. She also addressed Stacy's memory loss, saying, "If the defendant had a reason to not want to remember, you can't say that she did or didn't remember. It's strictly that she's telling you she can't remember." And Dr. Plotnick said yes. Hyatt asked if Stacy truly didn't have bipolar disorder, if that would affect his conclusion today, and he said yes. Stacy's mom testified next. She described Stacy's childhood, saying that she was always a happy little girl and that people were drawn to her. She said Stacy was always involved with a lot of activities, always had to stay busy. She sacrificed her sleep and wouldn't go to bed until all of her work was done. She said Stacy graduated in the year 2000 and completed a 5-year double major course in just 4 years. 2 weeks later, she married her now ex-husband, who she had been dating for 3 years. Ritgers showed a photo of the sex toy games found in Stacy's closet, and her mom said that those were from Stacy's bachelorette party. She told the court that after 5.5 years of marriage, Stacy had filed for divorce. She talked about Stacy's values and said that after Stacy started working at Mason High School, she said she was very happy that Mason taught abstinence. She said at one point, Stacy had applied to another school system. She interviewed there twice, but then found out that they didn't teach abstinence, so she turned down the job. She said that in the fall of 2010, Stacy was taking on way too much and had started not being happy. She said in her opinion, Stacy was depressed and that she and her husband were worried about her. She said Stacy was in a car accident while on a field trip, that she had fallen asleep at the wheel and ended up in a ditch. She didn't know that Stacy drank, but she believes now that she was self-medicating with alcohol. She said Stacy told her that she could only get 2 to 3 hours of sleep with the way her schedule was. On cross-examination, Prosecutor Hyatt brought up that Stacy had seen a therapist in the past, and Stacy's mom agreed, saying that she had seen a therapist after her marriage had ended. She said it took about 2 years for Stacy to heal from the verbal abuse she had encountered from it. A forensic psychologist, Dr. Ken Mangus, testified next. He had evaluated Stacy for the defense. Dr. Mangus said that Stacy had a severe mental disease when she had sex with her students, an underlying bipolar II disorder. He said she also had other medical conditions that coexisted with bipolar, and those were all made worse by her use of alcohol and Zoloft. Dr. Mangus looked at a number of things to arrive at his conclusion: Stacy herself, the victim's statements from other students, as well as from Stacy's mom, her resume and schedule, and emails between Stacy and her sister. He also looked at her medical records, along with the report from Dr. Plotnick. He said Stacy suffered from polycystic disease, which can cause increased sexual desire because of an increase in testosterone. He said she also had irritable bowel syndrome and was a vegan. And why he said that's significant is because sometimes vegans can have a vitamin B12 deficiency, and research indicates that that can lead to mania. The same thing with IBS. Those who suffer from it can also have a B12 deficiency. That deficiency, along with her bipolar, could cause a decreased need for sleep and cause her to be over-involved in activities. He called it a perfect storm with all of these things combined. He said the IBS, veganism, and the polycystic disease, coupled with someone who has bipolar disorder and prescribed Zoloft, makes the mania worse in someone who already has it. And when you add alcohol, it magnifies everything. He said he found that Stacy had a history of mania and that it was evident that Stacy was more than involved compared to her peers. He described Stacy's day as waking up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, teaching and training all day, coming home and prepping for her classes the next day before going to sleep around midnight. He said Stacy told him that she would go without sleep 1 or 2 days every couple weeks. In addition, Dr. Mangus said that part of his diagnosis was that she also suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, resulting from her marriage, where he said she was sexually abused, forced to participate in intimate sexual acts. He said she was not remembering things that had happened in her marriage, which would suggest some amnesia around the incidents. For someone with PTSD, it wouldn't be uncommon to have amnesia around those events as a way to cope with the trauma. He said with the Zoloft, 96% of people are helped by it, but 4% of people can go into a psychotic amnesia state. Asked whether he conducted any tests on Stacy, he said yes. He tested for multiple personalities, which she did not have, and tested her for competency to see if she would be competent in court. He said that she was. She was perfectly competent in understanding courtroom procedures. He also gave her another test, meant to see if she's able to understand what's going on around her. He said that test showed that she doesn't have a lot of psychological insight into what's going on with her. He said she's defensive and reluctant to engage in self-exploration. She's somewhat depressed, but not overly anxious. She has self-doubt and low self-esteem, caused by conformity, and she attempts to make up for that by overachieving. He said she has a need to be very correct, with an inclination to adhere to social norms. All of this is in total contradiction to the behavior that she's accused of with the students. He concluded that something else had to be happening, had to be affecting that behavior. He said she was seeking assurance and approval from superiors, and that she wanted approval from the students that she was sleeping with. Dr. Mangus concluded by saying that Stacy did not know right from wrong at the time of the incidents. The defense then rested. The state called one rebuttal witness, a clinical psychologist who said she disagreed with much of Dr. Mangus's report. She said Stacy was distressed about her marriage, but that it didn't rise to the level of a mental disease, and that although she was stressed out and had sleep problems, she still remained reliable about her work. She noted that Stacy was probably miserable at the time, but that it wasn't a severe mental illness, disease, or defect. She said she does not think Stacy had mania or PTSD. She said true PTSD is marked by a fluctuation of not remembering and then remembering in a very intense way. Triggers make the memories come out. She said Stacy had no repressed memories that would come back in flashbacks. Stacy told her that she didn't remember some of the events that had taken place, but there was no evidence that she had a memory disorder. She said thyroid disease and manic disorder can look very similar, but that she didn't have any physical ailments that could have impacted her mental health. She believes that Stacy had a number of significant stressors in her life that had all come together, causing her to not function at a high level, but that she doesn't believe that there was any mental disease that kept her from realizing the wrongfulness of her acts. In her closing argument, Prosecutor Hyatt reiterated that these events occurred over 5 separate evenings in Stacy's home, while she was a teacher and the victims were all students. She said that during all 5 events, Stacy demonstrated the ability to walk, talk, open doors, make drinks, give tours, without any indication of being falling over drunk or even slurring her speech. She was sober to the point where she could have made a choice, but her choice on all of those nights was to let those young men in. Prosecutor Hyatt took issue with how the boys in the case were portrayed and said that they were all good students who have high goals for the future. One is pre-law and one is pre-med. All of them said that Stacy was worried that they would tell, that she would lose her job and that her life would be over. She understood the wrongfulness of her actions, Hyatt said. These were consensual acts. The victims were willing participants. But it never would have started if Stacy hadn't given out hints as to where she lived. Hyatt said Stacy's actions when she was dead sober started this entire chain of events. Would this be different if it was a male teacher, she asked? Would this still be considered a victimless crime? She said Stacy gained the boys' trust and then violated it. And it's that violation of trust that makes it illegal in the state of Ohio. Hyatt said that Stacy is an adult and noted that she has a black belt in self-defense, so she has the ability to assert herself in some fashion. If the court heard correctly, the only time this defendant blacked out was on these 5 occasions, she said. None of the other times that she was drinking and took Zoloft did she ever have a claimed blackout. Conveniently, just these 5 times. But it doesn't make her crazy, and we ask that you find her guilty. When it was the defense's turn, Stacy's attorney held up a blank piece of paper and said, "This is Stacy." He made a dot in the middle and said, "This was her bad behavior." He said everything else about her was good. She lived her Christian life and yoga philosophy and counseled others against drug use. He said the state wants you to believe that after 10 years of teaching, she would throw it all away just to have sex with 5 guys. He said they didn't hear about anything that would explain away her behavior, like love notes or romance or anything like that. He said the prosecution is right. This happened in Stacy's home. They came to her house, they came in, and they took advantage. She has that personality where people can take advantage of her, he said. He called it a victimless crime and said that if she wasn't a teacher, they wouldn't even be here. He said there was nothing bizarre, no pornography or anything like that found by investigators, and that Stacy was raised in a Christian home with core values. The whole idea that she just gave up on all of that doesn't fit, he said. It's far more reasonable that Stacy was suffering from an underlying psychological disorder, bipolar 2, he said. She can function with that, but on top of that is the Zoloft and the alcohol. He compared it to giving sugar to a diabetic or throwing gasoline onto a fire. He said the state didn't bring in a toxicologist to refute any of that. He closed by saying, "It's a privilege and honor to represent Stacy. She's one of the finest people I've ever met in my life." After considering all of the evidence, Judge Peeler announced his verdict.
I am convinced that you have mental health and substance abuse issues that played a role in your behavior. I readily accept that excessive consumption of alcohol by a person taking Zoloft will have some effect on brain activity. Voluntary intoxication may not be taken into consideration in determining the existence of a mental state that is an element of a crime. Voluntary intoxication may be admissible to show whether or not a person was physically capable of performing the act which the person is charged. The defense has the burden of proof by a preponderance of the evidence on the insanity issue. Your attorneys have made a valiant and compelling argument on your behalf. I cannot make the magnificent leap required to accept a proposition that at the time of the commission of the offense, you did not know as a result of severe mental disease or defect the wrongfulness of your acts. I listened to your expert testimony, but I also heard the evidence. I do not believe that any reasonable person who listened carefully to the evidence could reach the conclusion that was offered by your expert psychologist. I find that it lacks credibility. With the exception of the conclusions of the defense expert's psychologist, I find that the majority of what was said by the witnesses from both sides to be credible. I accept that you are a person who cares about people. I believe that you are a very talented teacher. I also know that it was your responsibility to establish and maintain appropriate boundaries with your students, whether at school or away. I find that you do not meet the requirements of the affirmative defense of not guilty by reason of insanity under ORC 2901.01. I find that the state has proven each and every essential element of sexual battery and offenses involving underage persons as alleged in the 19-count indictment as amended beyond a reasonable doubt. I find you guilty of all counts.
There was an audible gasp in the courtroom as he read the guilty verdict. Right after the verdict was read, victim impact statements were made. SS's mother said that her son and family had been impacted greatly by Stacy's choice to have sex with her 5 students. She said that SS's father suffered from cancer and that he was deeply depressed over that. She said he trusted Stacy as a teacher and friend. She said he has gone through countless counseling sessions and that he now has a therapist at the university he attends. RS's father also spoke and said that he's there as a father, not to pass judgment. He said his son lost friends in EK and SS over the situation, and that RS suffered through depression and almost didn't go to college. Stacy told the judge that she didn't want to speak, so the judge resumed with sentencing. He sentenced her to 48 months in prison and said she must register as a sex offender for the rest of her life. After she is released, she'll do 5 years of mandatory control, or probation. Stacy blew a kiss goodbye to her parents, who were seated in the gallery, and she was led away in handcuffs. In the summer of 2012, Stacy wrote a letter to Judge Peeler and asked him to grant her an early release. Here are portions of that letter. Honorable Judge Peeler, I'm writing you this letter to request that you consider allowing me an early release from my 4-year prison sentence. Although I did not take the opportunity to speak publicly at my trial, there are some things that I would like to share with you now in order to help you make your decision about my judicial release. I would like to begin by saying how ashamed I am of my actions and behaviors that led to my incarceration. With the education and training I have had in mental and emotional health and substance abuse, I did not ask for help when I certainly needed it. Looking back at my life during the fall of 2010, I can clearly see how I was beginning a downward spiral that led to very poor decision-making and some very serious consequences for me and others. I knew my depression was deepening, my workload was increasing, and my sleep deprivation was worsening. Against my better judgment, I started down the slippery slope of drinking wine in the evenings to aid in sleeping, instead of cutting back on my work hours, reducing my stress, and making time to see my doctor. I realize my choices and actions not only are an embarrassment to myself and my family, but they also reflect poorly on my professions of educator and athletic trainer, as well as my places of employment. I also realize my choices and actions have caused harm to the 5 young men who came to my house, as well as their families and close friends. Stacy then went on to list the accomplishments she has made while in prison. She worked on the yard crew and helped take care of the prison grounds. She became a tutor for women who are trying to pass their pre-GED and GED tests. And she worked with the prison's mental health director to plan a wellness class. She also taught while in prison, a 90-minute wellness class 2 days a week, along with a daily yoga class. Stacy said she had also been working on her mental health, meeting with a psychiatrist who diagnosed her as being bipolar, and even requesting to be a part of the sex offender group, even though it wasn't mandatory for her to do so. A hearing was held in 2012 to decide whether Stacy would be granted early release. Several of the boys' parents testified that they were against her early release, saying that they believed that she should serve out the rest of her sentence. One of the students spoke up too and said, "I trusted Stacy during a rough time in my life, and she used that trust against me. She played her games and groomed me and took advantage. Most people in society feel that it's every 17-year-old's fantasy to sleep with their teacher. Being young and naive at the time, it was. But what people fail to realize is that this fantasy quickly turned into a nightmare that I'm still living today." Stacy also spoke to the court and said that she takes full responsibility for her actions. Judge Peeler called her a model prisoner and said that she was unlikely to reoffend. And then he released her. And that's all for today's episode. This case brings up a lot of interesting topics, and I'd love to know what you all think. Do you think Stacy's punishment was fair? Do you think the judge was right in granting her an early release? And something that I always think about is the role that gender plays in cases like these. Would your feelings be any different if Stacy had been a male? Join my Facebook discussion group and let me know. Just go to courtjunkie.com/Facebook. You can also find me on Twitter at CourtJunkiePod, on Instagram at CourtJunkie, and you can always email me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. To support this podcast and get early, ad-free access to new episodes, you can join Patreon for as little as $1 a month by going to courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.